Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the 12 Days of Copilot. It's really hard to believe that we're already on the second to last day of this series. I'm Scott Frappier, Chief AI Architect at Stoneridge Software, and today I'm going to be sharing a sneak peek at really what's ahead for Copilot with features that are coming soon. We're going to basically look at some of the enhancements that are coming with Copilot in 2025. And really, what I want to do here is give you a sneak peek on some of the innovations that you're going to be able to use inside of your business in the future. There's a lot of cool stuff, so it was really hard to basically identify a small subset of what we're going to be talking about today. But just know that there are so many, even beyond the four that I'm going to be highlighting. Really, what I want to communicate to you today is number one, some of the new end user features that are coming. But one of the things that we didn't really talk about as much on the 12 days of Copilot was really then the pro developer experience that you may also be curious about because maybe you're watching the 12 days of Copilot and you know how to create C Sharp applications or Python or Ruby or whatever the language may be. And you want to use that to actually access some of that information. So with that, let's go through and just share my screen so we can go through a couple of slides to really talk through what those new features are going to be as we go through this process. As you can see now, we should have my screen up. Fantastic. Microsoft Copilot features to look at in 2025. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of share really what are those major features that we want to kind of talk through here today. And we've got primarily four of them that are, like I said, going to be really impactful coming into 2025 that you as a business are more than likely going to want to explore and actually rally around to be able to be support a lot of the Copilot capabilities inside of your organization. We have the four here, which are autonomous agents, which we'll talk through and we'll do a demo. We've got Azure AI Foundry, Fabric, and then the Azure AI Model Inference API. It's a mouthful, but at the same point, it's a really critical step for what we need in 2025 to create AI based solutions for businesses. The first one, obviously, is going to be the autonomous agents, baking in the ability inside of Copilot Studio for you to be able to add what we call triggers inside of Copilot Studio that then start an agent in its process to be able to then interact, obviously, with your data or potentially do additional actions related to it. Now, what's fun about this from an autonomous agent perspective really is the fact that we're reusing already the great capabilities of Copilot Studio, as an example, to be able to drive then some of those base capabilities. Now, what I want to do here today is I want to really just quickly show you what does that mean in terms of what those capabilities are. So if we go here and take just a quick look as a returns assistant that's inside of here, we can see we have this new section called triggers. And slides are fantastic, right? But as a former pre-sales architect, I like to demo. So let's take a quick look at what autonomous agents are going to do for you in the future as you go through a lot of your processes. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a brand new agent. We're going to do this live on stream because we want to make sure that we're practicing what we preach, right? Which is the autonomous agent capabilities are going to expand a lot of the different workload type requirements that you have and address them in a fashion that reduces the human cost of actually going through and identifying, correlating, organizing, taking action, whatever it may be, through the use of autonomous agents. Now, agents, as you already know, are pretty basic, right? In terms of we've gone through this in the prior one where I can create an agent. As an example here, I'm going to create a new agent that focuses around order taking. And you can see as I go through this process that I can basically go through and create an agent on the fly very easily and quickly. Now, one of the features that we have now inside of Copilot Studio is that autonomous agent based perspective, right? So, just as an example here, if we go back out of Copilot Studio and I go to my agents really quickly, I generated this about an hour ago, so we can quickly go through this inside of this particular event for the 12 days of Copilot. But in here, the order manager, as I call it, what I did is I went through and then enabled what we call the generative based capabilities on this particular agent. If you go to your settings as an example, and you go to your generative AI that was inside of here as a part of that, what you're going to see is that I've gone through and then enabled the preview feature for the generative AI based capabilities inside of our agent in this example. Now, one of the features that's added with the autonomous agent perspective is the introduction of triggers, right? So let's go ahead and click on a trigger and take a quick look at it, because it's going to be mind blowing to you on what you can do with this to basically then address what those business workload needs are in your organization. So, as an example, if I click on the add trigger here, I have the ability now to basically have it where when a specific type of an event occurs, that this particular agent would then be called to then interact and address that particular need. So as an example here, I could have the featured different triggers that are here out of the box, such as I could have something that checks an email inbox every 5 minutes by doing a recurrence pattern that's related to it. I could have a SharePoint item when it's generated or created inside of SharePoint that it actually causes this particular Copilot Studio agent to execute. Or when I add, modify, or delete a row. So if you have Business Central connected to Dataverse, or F&O connected to Dataverse, or you have Dynamics 365 sales or customer service, you can basically make it now so that when a particular event or action occurs, that this particular Copilot will be triggered. And here is the cool thing about this. You can add additional triggers through a library concept. And what you can also do is pair some of these different scenarios together. So that way, just as an example, if I don't have a trigger that's exposed here, but I have a connector that I can interact with to get to that data, what I can do is I can have a Power Automate trigger that then inserts into a Dataverse table that then could then trigger the agent to basically encompass any of those outlier needs that you may have, where maybe there's not a direct trigger that's actually been designed inside of the application that you're interacting with to basically start this particular agent experience. So this is, in my mind, a massive feature that you are more than likely going to be using. And here's the thing to note, team, just at a really high level. First and foremost, remember, we can also do this inside of Power Automate. The autonomous agent perspective really is a concept that's been introduced into Copilot Studio so that end users can very rapidly create or add or connect basically different events that then call these basically agents inside of here to execute tasks inside of your environment. I'm going to tell you this though, and it's a little known secret. You can already do it now with Power Automate. You can use Power Automate to have an event that is called that then has a prompt that's embedded inside of it that calls a large language model and then does that pathing that's related to it as well. So if you think about it, we're going to have many different levels then of automation that we can introduce. And depending upon what your needs are inside of an organization, we can either use Copilot Studio for very quick autonomous agents that we can set up that reuse existing topics that maybe are interacted with, for example, inside of an interactive agent experience as well, all the way to the pro dev perspective, or logic apps, for example, could also be triggered then to basically take a particular action, use then even potentially the call to an agent here as a part of it to then interact as well with that. Imagine it like this: set up an agent, have it so it reacts to a table data perspective with it, have it so it takes that result and then puts it then into a response inside of a table, grab that inside of Power Automate and do some action with it. The possibilities are going to become endless with it. So it's a really cool capability, and I'm really looking forward to it for 2025. Now, beyond that, there's a couple of other major ones as well that we want to talk through just really quickly here. And once again, these are a little bit deeper in terms of what those capabilities are, because quite candidly, I think a lot of focus has been on the customer or the end user experience, but what about the developer experience? So one of the new concepts that's being introduced here is going to be this concept called Azure AI Foundry, which allows for you basically to go through and create pro dev experiences where you can create your own Copilot that may be more focused towards the workload need that you have, but allows you then to snap that into Copilot Studio. So imagine it where you've got some type of images inside of Copilot where you have a different large language model beyond the Copilot large language model that you want to use. Well, you can use Azure AI Foundry to build out more complex Copilot scenarios that you may have in your organization. As an example, medical device is the perfect example of this, where data is very, very structured in terms of what the regulatory requirements are around it. Well, by using Azure AI Foundry, you can control that data layer even more so in the orchestration that occurs with it. So just as an example inside of here, when we look at Azure AI Studio with the Foundry perspective with it, we have different models that we can use. So for example, once again, if you want to use Mistral because it actually provides a faster chat completion based capability, you can use that then and even then connect that to Copilot Studio as a part of that infrastructure and framework. You can basically access many different models that are made by even our competitors, such as Gemini or Llama, as an example, or Mistral that's inside of here, or even some of the other GPT models like Strawberry that are not exposed yet, for example, inside of Copilot directly. You have the ability as well then with those models to select different versions of them, to see the accuracy, to understand what the cost is that's related to it, which has been a big nebulous type area, but using this allows us to get to that data even further. And then on top of it, we have the playgrounds that we can interact with to be able to drive that, to really then, as you can see here, interact obviously with these assistants as part of that process. The absolute last one I want to kind of share here as well. So beyond that, or the last two here, there's going to be the SQL Server aspect as well with it. So not only are we getting this whole Foundry perspective to be able to interact with models, create different models, and then basically create that pro dev experience, now inside of Fabric, we're going to have the ability to have SQL databases inside of Fabric. So what we can do is we can access then the data inside of Fabric for Copilot, for OneLake, for Purview, and basically join that all together where we now not only have what we classify as our reporting data, but also our operational data inside of here. So this is a really cool concept because it starts giving AI a database that we can reuse and access. As you can see here, I'm creating a new database in the background. And then from there on the far right, even our Copilot experience inside of Azure Foundry is now going to be used, and as well as inside of Fabric here, that we're going to be able to use to really drive Copilot solutions forward as well as a part of it. We also, because we're introducing Fabric as a part of it, have this fantastic reporting based capability as well with a OneLake as an example that we can use to then increase really the AI effectiveness, accuracy, reporting, and also visibility to that data. And as you can see here, the orchestration that you're going to be able to do from a data tier perspective is going to be very substantial. And I'm really looking forward to the lakehouse concepts that are being introduced with this to be able to then drive, obviously, some of those other Copilot experiences that we need. And the last one I want to leave you with for a Copilot feature that's going to be huge, the Azure AI Model Inference API. It's a mouthful. The reason I'm listing it here, think about it this way. Longer term, GPT-4 isn't going to be the best model. O1 or Strawberry is going to be a better model. And then in the future, we're going to have another model. But when we're creating applications that interact with Copilot, we don't want to reprogram that integration layer every single time. With the Azure AI Model Inference, we're going to be able to define basically a standardized API that we use to interact with Copilot. So that way, if you want to use a different model for a different purpose, you don't have to change that access layer from a pro dev perspective as you go through it. And it will allow you then to use a model that's better at images or better at voice or better at text without you having to reprogram that integration layer that you have. So this is going to be a very massive feature in the future that I know all of us are going to be using. And we're going to then see, obviously, potentially even the ability in Copilot Studio to be able to select what model you want to interact with because of that standardization that we're focusing on from a Copilot enablement perspective. All right, so that got a little bit techie there for a little bit. I hope you were able to bear with me with it. I think the first one obviously was a slam dunk that most people will be using as they go through it. Let's go ahead and wrap for today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and on the 11th day of Copilot, it looks like what we're going to be giving away is a centrifuger. And would you look at that? It looks like it might be app enabled. That's kind of cool. So it's a Pura4 centrifuger. And Bree in the background, just let me know who won. Miss Stephanie West, congratulations. You are our winner today for our 11th giveaway, the Pura4 Scent Diffuser. You're going to have to let me know how cool that app is as we go through and send that over to you. I'm really, really curious, Stephanie. Congratulations. And it's fantastic that I get to actually announce somebody that I've interacted with recently as well, Stephanie. So fantastic job and thank you for joining. All right, team. So last thing here as well, day 12, a vision bold and bright is going to be really our last session that we're going to be looking at. That's going to be presented by our very own CEO, Eric Newell. So this is going to be focusing on aligning Copilot with leadership and organizational objectives. So please make sure to join the final one. I know there will be a great gift that will be there as well. With that, thank you to all of you that have joined so far for the 12 days of Copilot. I hope every day you've learned something small that you're going to be able to take to your organization and move forward with possibly in 2025. And as always, if you have any questions, make sure to reach out to us. We're more than happy to help on this AI adventure with you as you go through it. With that, happy holidays and have a good one. Thank you.